Fellow human beings, Power Gamer here. We all know Mario, we all love Mario, and Super Mario Wonder is officially here. So, to celebrate, I am counting down my top 10 favorite Mario games. Yeah, I know pretty much everyone has done this at some point, but unlike most people, I am limiting this list to mainline Mario games only. So, no karts, no sports, no RPGs, none of that. That could very easily get a list of its own. With that out of the way, here we go! Number 10. Super Mario Bros. The game that started it all, sort of. Super Mario Bros. Arguably saved the video game industry in North America. And while it is simple by today's standards, a lot of it holds up really well. The levels are cool, the controls are snappy, though a little awkward, and the gameplay is legitimately fun and addicting. Obviously, it's got some issues like occasionally annoying enemies and the whole life system, but it definitely deserves all the recognition it got back in the day. A lot of NES games don't age too well, but this one honestly does. There's not really too much else to say other than it's a classic for a reason. Number 9. Super Mario Land 2, 6 Golden Coins. One of the lesser talked about Mario games, but still a really fun one. Because this game was designed to be more experimental, it has some of the most unique and creative levels in the entire Mario series. Instead of your typical grass, snow, and desert levels, we have areas themed after space, machine parts, and even a giant house. Plus, this was the game that introduced Wario to the series, and we all know what a major role he's played. Okay, maybe not that much, but people love him, and that's all that matters. It's also crazy impressive they were able to make a game this big and this good looking for a system as limited as the Game Boy. The fact that there's more detail in here than some of the NES games is extremely commendable. It's a shame not too many people talk about this game. It's a lot of fun. Well, until you get to the end of the game and it becomes an absolute nightmare, but everything else is pretty solid. It might not be a perfect game, but it is one that I think deserves to be remembered. Number 8. Super Mario 3D World. A lot of people had mixed thoughts on this game when it came out, but it seems to be getting more love in recent years, and I'm really glad it is, because this game is fantastic. Some might say it's just an expanded version of Super Mario 3D Land, and they're kinda right, but it does enough to stand on its own. We have an insanely large amount of levels to play, the controls are super tight, and there's tons of cool secrets to discover. Plus, this is the first time we get to play as Peach, Toad, and even Rosalina in a 3D setting. The power-ups introduced in this game, particularly the cat suit, are so much fun to use, and thankfully this game is able to feel challenging without feeling unforgiving. There are many points in this game where your skills will be put to the test, but the large amount of lives you get should help quite a bit. While this wasn't exactly the Mario game people were hoping for when it first released, the fact that everyone was super excited for it to come to the Switch means it must have had a lot more to it than they initially gave it credit for. Number 7. Super Mario Bros. 3. Out of all the 2D Mario games, this one left by far the biggest influence. It was a massive upgrade from the last two games, since it introduced most of the world themes we would all come to know, tons of enemies like boos and chain chomps, a boatload of awesome power-ups, world maps, airships, the Koopalings, and tons more. It is without a doubt the best of the NES Mario games. While it does have some issues like the schizophrenic difficulty and the lack of saving, it is still an awesome game. You never really know what you'll see next. It is regarded as one of, if not the best NES game ever made by a lot of people, and if you ask me, that praise is completely deserved even 30 years later. Number 6. New Super Mario Bros. I admit I'm a little biased putting this above Mario 3, since this was the first Mario game I ever played, but I don't care, this is my list and I like this game better. People have very mixed thoughts on the new Super Mario Bros. Games as a whole, but I think most people agree they at least started out pretty great. This was the first 2D Mario game in over a decade, so having it go back to basics, especially for a system with many people new to video games playing it, was honestly really smart. And thankfully the game itself is a lot of fun. The controls are super tight, the levels are fantastic, and we have without a doubt the best boss fights in any 2D Mario game up to this point. Not to mention a vast selection of mini-games that can be really fun time wasters. This game may not have pushed the series forward as much as earlier entries, but sometimes you need to go back to basics to remember why you loved something in the first place. Number 5. Super Mario Maker 2. I debated whether or not I should have this on the list, but Wikipedia says it's a mainline game, so it counts. The sequel nobody knew they wanted, Super Mario Maker was regarded by many as one of the few saving graces of the Wii U. May it rest in peace. And the sequel took what made the original game so great and made it even better. The amount of things you can unlock in this game is insane, and because of that, the user-created levels never get stale. We've got way more level themes, enemies, items, power-ups, and even a story mode that, while it is simple, it gives you even more bang for your buck, and it's not a bad distraction. With how much stuff there is to do in here, you'll more than get your money's worth out of this game. It not only improved on the first one, but it surpassed it in almost every way. Except for the lack of amiibo costumes. Come on, why are those not in here? Number 4. Super Mario 64, the game that changed everything. Super Mario 64 is one of the most revolutionary games of all time. And while it definitely has aged, it is still pretty impressive today. This game not only took the series into a whole new dimension, but it completely redefined what to expect from a Mario game and platformers in general. Instead of a linear stage where you just need to get to the end, you're thrown into a sprawling open area and can go just about anywhere. This was one of the first games to really give you freedom of exploration. It's fun to just go off the beaten path and find something new you can screw around with. Not to mention we get some absolutely fantastic levels, fun challenges, and a killer soundtrack. Most 3D games of this era don't age too well, but that doesn't mean the games aren't fantastic, even now. Here we go! Number 3. Super Mario World. Without a doubt the most beloved entry in the series, or at the very least the most beloved 2D entry, Super Mario World is freaking amazing. It is pretty much everything you would want from a 2D Mario game. The controls are easily the best in the series, the levels are memorable, fun, and have just the right amount of challenge. Every single one of the power-ups are useful, with the Cape Feather being possibly the best one in the entire franchise. The game introduced Yoshi, who's just wonderful, and the amount of secrets you can find is just insane. And not to mention, you actually get rewarded for going out of your way to find them, with some of the toughest levels in the series, all of which culminates in an honestly cosmetic but still hilarious reward. Not to mention fantastic music and graphics that still look good. Super Mario World is just an absolute joy to play. There are very few games that can keep a smile on your face for 90% of the time you're playing, but Super Mario World is one of those games. It is quite possibly the best 2D platformer I have ever played. Number 2. Super Mario Galaxy. I already talked about this in my top 10 Wii games video, so I'll try to keep it brief. Super Mario Galaxy is quite simply magical. Super Mario World may be a joy, but Galaxy is a wonder. Wait a minute. Between the amazingly colorful graphics, gorgeous orchestral soundtrack, extremely varied levels, insanely fun challenges, and honestly fairly compelling story and characters, Super Mario Galaxy is a game like no other. Sort of. But I'm sure you're all wondering why I didn't put Super Mario Galaxy 2 on here. Well, the answer is quite simple. I haven't played it yet. Don't worry, I'll get to it eventually. I am genuinely amazed at how awesome this game is, and I am pissed at my younger self for not playing this, because I guarantee I would have loved it back then. I wasn't sure if it would top 64 or World for me when I first played it, but it completely overtook them. There is a reason everyone holds this game in such high regard. Believe me, it's worth all the hype. And even then, it's only number 2. And the number 1 best Mario game of all time is Super Mario Odyssey. Pretty much every positive thing I said about every other game on this list is here and accounted for in Super Mario Odyssey. It's honestly more than a game, it's an experience. Gorgeous graphics, tight controls, and amazing soundtrack, with Jump Up Superstar being one of my absolute favorite songs in any video game ever. Wildly creative worlds, ingenious level design, and literally hundreds of secrets to discover. Super Mario Odyssey is as close to perfection as you can possibly get. From start to finish, it is an absolute love letter to Mario fans. The amount of Easter eggs and references in this game is outstanding, and the capture mechanic is legitimately one of the most awesome and fun things I have ever seen in a video game. The name Odyssey is highly appropriate because this is a journey like no other. World is joyful and Galaxy is magical, but Odyssey is just divine. I don't think I've ever had a video game bring me this much joy in my entire life. If you own a Nintendo Switch, it is 1000% mandatory to get this game. There are very few things that have given me an experience as amazing as Super Mario Odyssey, and there is no other game that deserves the top spot more than this absolute masterpiece. And that's about it. Feel free to let me know what your favorite Mario games are while I head off to get my copy of Super Mario Wonder. Yeah, they didn't have any. Must have sold out.